This podcast is general in nature and hasn't taken your circumstances into account. It's important you consider your personal circumstances and speak to a financial advisor before deciding what's right for you. Any general tax information provided is provided as a guide only.
Okay, so welcome to Divita, who is a Year 12 student, high school student, and to Ash, who is studying economics while also working at A&P Bank. So welcome to Simplifying Investing. Thank you so much for your time today. I wanted to start off with asking you both a broad question about what you're currently studying in economics. Obviously, high school and uni approach, you're going to be doing different things. What are the sort of main frameworks that your teachers are guiding you through right now?
Yeah, so we've just finished the global economy and Australia's place in the global economy. So we've just finished talking about exchange rates and the balance of payments and trends over the years, as well as like trade, protection, and basically what topics that really relate to what's going on in the world right now.
So quite theory heavy in terms of...
we focus on really basic concepts. We don't go too broad. We keep it very simple and like best way to understand simple concepts. And so they're mainly just theories. We don't go too far.
Are they teaching you those things now because of what's going on in the world around tariffs and trade?
It's part of the syllabus.
It is part of the syllabus.
It's part of the syllabus.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And Ash, what are the sort of things that you are studying at the moment?
Yeah, so I just have finished my third year. I'm into my fourth year now. So I've already picked my elective, which I study through the stream of international relations. So I actually have...
So you're not doing a straight economics degree?
No, I study politics, philosophy and economics,
okay.
PPE. And to get to this point, I did have to study all of the micro and macroeconomics courses, learn econometrics and the things like that. But right now, as I'm studying through a qualitative lens, I look at more broadly theoretical frameworks about the broader international political economy and how politics really intertwines with a lot of economic relations in the market right now. My favorite in particular is looking at market philosophy and the philosophies behind how the markets run. So not only the math side, but also a very humanities perspective of the economy.
So when you started your degree, you knew that you were going to have a major in economics? Is that part of your degree?
You don't have to pick a major at all. You can have no stream and just have the 3 disciplines. I decided to go with international relations because I actually did a course on crisis. It was called Crisis, Manias, Panics and Crashes. And it was just about the international political economy, in which we looked at it through a very philosophical perspective as to how social and political influence has disrupted the market and how those things are intertwined in the intersection between those disciplines. I think for me, because I study PPE, I can't discern economics away from politics and philosophy. I study them intertwined.
So when you said that you had to study microeconomics, econometrics, that was a compulsory thing as part of your course?
Yeah, it was actually a requirement to learn. We did have to do calculus for the microeconomics 2 class and the macroeconomics 2 class as well, which is not my strong suit. I definitely work better in the broader theoretical perspectives, but I did have to do it. And I found that a lot of students actually dropped out of the economics stream during this time and just switched to a humanities degree. A lot of people study PPE as well with law at the same time. And so a lot of those law students also dropped out and just switched to law humanities rather than law PPE. Those calculus courses certainly made a lot of students drop out during that time. I'm really glad that I went through it though, because now I can sort of do my favorite part of economics, which is looking at it from a qualitative perspective. But I mean, economics is quantitative in its nature, so it is important to learn those things.
So you had to cross that barrier,
exactly,
that calculus barrier, to then actually be able to do what you want to.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So at high school, how much maths is involved in economics?
It's really basic. It's just the small formulas like how to work out terms of trade or real GDP versus nominal GDP. It's just addition, division. It's very, very basic.
Not doing any calculus.
No, you don't.
So the students who are studying economics in your class, how big is your class?
We've only got 8 girls in our class.
Wow, okay. When I did it in high school, we had it was actually quite 35 or 40 girls, and there's just one class?
Yep, just one. And there's also one year 11 class, which is only 5, so it gets smaller.
Wow. Well, that certainly fits in with a decline over time in the study of economics across high school and at uni. So most of the girls who were in your class, are they doing 2-unit maths?
Yes. I think me and a few other girls, we all do 3-unit. We do extension 1. I'm pretty sure half the other 2, they do standard math, and then there's some advanced math. So any level of math in economics.
And so that's interesting then that there's this a bit of a gap then between year 12 study of economics in terms of the level of maths that's required to then go into uni, because most of the time they say that to study economics you need to have done at least 2-unit basic, because you're doing calculus and all these things that are difficult, especially if you haven't done it before in high school. And there are bridging courses available, but that's sort of an additional thing for uni students to do. And there has been a bit of diversion in some thoughts, like Ross Gittins, obviously very famous economics, probably the most famous economics editor who works for the Sydney Morning Herald. His view is that there should be less maths involved in economics to sort of encourage people more study of it, especially at a university level. So, Divita, when you're thinking about your future and leaving high school, are you going to put economics as one of your preferences?
I'm definitely thinking about taking a Bachelor of Economics. It's one of my top 5 courses. I was always interested in commerce, and in year 10 I was set on doing like a business and law degree, and then I got recommended by my year 10 commerce teacher to take up economics in year 11, and it became my favorite subject. And then I went to a University of Sydney open day last year, and I went to the economics section, and I was very intrigued. And I have a cousin who did a Bachelor of Economics in USyd, and it's just, I've decided that economics is definitely something I will be pursuing.
Have you seen a big divide in the number of people who are studying business studies rather than economics? Are there more people who are doing business?
I also do business, and there's 2 full classes. We're full. And there's only one small 8-person class for economics.
And what are the type of things that you're learning about in business studies?
It's very simple. We do 4 topics. It's marketing, human resources, operations, and finance. And you just do 1 term on each topic. So you basically think about the business's point of view and how they function.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because that's been the big change, that students are studying business studies in high school rather than economics. So that's been the big switch. And the theory is that people can see a future in studying business studies because it's sort of seen as a bit more corporate. You can use it, obviously, it relates to the types of functions that businesses have. So I'll ask you both, when you're both thinking about what you could do with economics, why did you decide to pick it? Did you think that there could be a future in a job or a career for you there, or was it just something that you're interested in, maybe a bit of both? And do you actually see a future in working in the economics field?
I picked it mainly because I was recommended. I wasn't going to pick economics. It wasn't in my top 3 until I got recommended. And then it became my favorite subject because of how interesting it was. And I found it easier to study for. If I had to study, I would choose to study for economics because it was interesting. Careers-wise, I think it definitely has a scope. There are options out there, but I mainly chose it, and I'm continuing to choose it because I'm interested in it.
For me, my high school didn't actually offer economics. I went to the Australian International School in Hong Kong. They did have a commerce class, but I didn't do that one. I did business studies. I think when picking my degree, I wasn't really thinking about my career at all. I think being an international student really opened my eyes to international relations and the trade between, it was just really interesting to view Hong Kong, especially it has 0 income tax and things like that, and how many businesses have their HQs in Hong Kong. And so I was really interested in the economic relations between Hong Kong and Australia and other countries. And then that kind of kick-started my interest in tiger economies in Asia, and then that made me want to start researching it more. And so I picked PPE uni because of that, I think because of my lived experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you find the economics that you're studying at the moment practical?
I haven't actually applied it. At least the quantitative analysis that I've done hasn't been applicable to my real world experience, working and things like that. I definitely do, however, use a lot of my understanding of the IPE, or international political economy, in my own life, with my political decisions. Also, I like to look at the share prices and investment opportunities, things like
love that.
So I do like to, apply that sort of lens.
What about you, Davida? Do you find economics practical?
I would say yes, because we study very basic, very simple concepts, but it's helped me understand like the way the world works. And like when you see things on social media about the news, you actually understand it instead of just skipping past it. Like the whole Trump tariff thing, it actually makes sense. Well, to an extent. But I understand like tariffs as a form of protection, and like when traveling, ever since studying exchange rates, I actually understand what it means when the Aussie dollar depreciates, and if that's cheaper to go overseas or more expensive.
So it feels, you're saying it's basically giving you a bit of an edge in terms of your financial literacy and being interested in finance news, economics news, political news. So do you find that you have a better understanding of it compared to some of your friends, for example?
There is a lot of jargon that's used, and economic jargon as well. And I find that because I've been given the opportunity to study politics, I'm included in these conversations because I can understand what people are saying on the news and I can understand what people are talking about. Whereas I find a lot of my peers who haven't been given this opportunity to study economics actually are excluded from these sort of conversations, and so have less understanding of actually what is happening in the world, and then therefore become a little more susceptible to, I suppose, I don't want to say propaganda, but I guess partisanally voting and becoming more susceptible to just believing what people say. For example, I think it's also become a lot...
Not having that critical thinking.
I think it's been exacerbated a lot by the increase of social media as people's main news platforms, and like fast media as a whole. People are being told like one statistic and one person's opinion on it in like a 20-second video.
Yeah.
And then just taking that to heart without really having the skills to decipher which part is bias and then which part is the actual statistic, and then, how to make your own conclusions about the market and politics from that. I find that a lot of my friends ask for my opinion and then just take that on rather than like actually like looking at what's going on and making their own conclusions for themselves. You know what I mean? I find that, the lack of financial literacy is very apparent right now in Australia.
Do you find that your studies of economics have helped you to be better at managing money? I know, Davida, it would be hard because you're still in high school, so it's not like you have this big lump sum of money that you can work with. But in terms of like even any savings, maybe from a part-time job or just thinking about future investments, do you find that you're more interested in your own finances because of this study?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like my dad is always telling me that I should save and invest my money. And I was like, I'm going to save to buy a new phone. And he's like, no, we're taking your money and putting it in a company and you can touch it when you're 60. And I definitely think studying economics has made me more aware of money in general and how I use it, what type of areas I'm spending it on. And my day-to-day life, it's not like a reoccurring thought. You don't think about economics every day.
That's right.
But when you think about like, your bank account and like your savings and like your interest rates, you think about what banks are doing.
Yeah, 100%. I think that especially in the recent events going on in the political economy, there is a lot of, I don't want to say hysteria, but just like panic, I suppose, as to around the stock markets, like whether or not the Australian dollar is going to crash, like whether money is actually worth anything. I know that money has been demonized a lot in young spaces in Sydney. Like people are actively like not only not understanding like money, but actively like trying to push back against it and try not to think about it at all. So I definitely think that, studying economics has made me understand and given me a bit of reassurance in understanding what is actually going on in the market and not to panic. You know what I mean? Because when panic starts is when the crisis begins. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of people are being susceptible to that right now, like with the tariffs like coming up and then tariffs leaving again. And then there's, like you were mentioning before, like all those charts showing like all these scary numbers and People are just seeing that and not fully understanding how to decipher that information and just taking, for example, what the title of it says to heart, rather than like really understanding what those statistics mean and how they actually fit into place in the broader spectrum, rather than just just taking that one graph as if that is the whole economy.
So to summarize, I guess it's given you a better understanding of what's going on in the world, made you more comfortable with the news, even when the news can seem overwhelming. And I guess the news has been overwhelming for a lot of people in the last few months in particular, made you more comfortable with thinking about your own finances as well, and given you a better sense of being able to do critical thinking when you're thinking about money issues or even the election that we have coming up. So being able to understand actually what the political parties are talking about and making it an informed decision rather than just the decision that you hear someone talking about on social media or your friends or even your parents.
Yeah, because some people hear about a market dip and then just start freaking out. Although like a market dip and like is inevitable. Like the market constantly shifts, and I try to tell my friends that like it's okay if it dips, like it'll be fine. Like we will notice it obviously with the cost of living and things like that, but it's not like everything's going to explode on fire. Like it'll be fine, and it's actually an opportunity as well if you do want to invest. And so when the market comes back up, then you'll be actually better off and things like that. A lot of people just don't sort of see it that way.
Do you see economists on TV?
That's the only place I would see them.
Mm-hmm. On the news?
On the news, yeah.
And when you see economists on TV, what do you usually see? What type of economists do you usually see, and what are they usually talking about?
It's generally about like exchange rates and like the stocks and like how the Australian dollar is performing in comparison to other currencies. That's typically.
And when they're talking, do you understand what they're saying, or?
To an extent, I definitely I have a basic knowledge, so I can kind of like I can grasp what they're trying to say, but I think it is a lot more wordy and a lot more amplified on the news.
What about you, Ash?
I get most of my news, including economic news, either through Instagram or through YouTube, or through my degree. And I find that...
So you don't see like the traditional economist type of people on those platforms?
I do see them on LinkedIn, but that's a bit different. I just feel like economists on TV and things like that, like they do use a lot of jargon, and even how I consume it on social media as well and on YouTube, there is a lot of jargon involved. And if I wasn't studying what I'm studying and working at a financial institution and things like that, I just straight up wouldn't understand what they were talking about.
Do you find them boring, the traditional economists, when they're talking?
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
But that's because, I mean, I've studied it and I know what it means when they're speaking. I can understand what they're talking about. I know that a lot of people would just be straight up excluded from those sort of conversations and what economists are saying, just because of the amount of jargon and the basic level of understanding that's necessary in order to actually decipher market relations and things like that. And what economists are saying.
And when you think about the economics profession overall in Australia or even globally, in the US, do you tend to see a gender bias in it?
Stereotypically, it is male dominated, and you would see that there's the notion of a man in finance or a man in economics, and it's more, I think it's still reflected today. Like if you think about all boys schools in the eastern suburbs as well, they have economics class that are full. But
really?
My class is struggling with 8 people.
I mean, the neoclassical economic system that we're built upon is dependent on women in the home, producing that reproductive sort of labor. And sorry to bring that
I love it.
No, but yeah, I mean, economic relations as a whole has only really recently sort of come to terms with the fact that markets are dependent on women doing unpaid labor for the household in order for then their male counterparts, whether it be children or husband or whatever. I mean, in a sort of nuclear family stereotype. But during like a recession and a dip in the economy and things like that, women also would go on and take on jobs as well. And especially now that Western society is moving towards like service-based economies and things like that, where women now get opportunities to work in offices and things like that. There still is that expectation to do that work at home as well, which makes it difficult to like succeed in like a career as well as like do those obligations at home. And I mean, the only way that's really been worked around is for hiring additional domestic workers to then complete those work that needed to be done. but then those domestic workers are often women as well. And so if you are a woman and also in another marginalized demographic, you are completely excluded from, like, or not completely excluded, but there is less opportunity for you to, make a real career in economics and to be included in those economic spaces. And it also just comes down to education as well. And I know that in my high school, there was no female students in the commerce class, and that was the reason that I didn't do it, because I didn't want to be the only one there. And
so you went to co-ed school?
Yeah, I did. And so I just think that it's sort of those, this is sort of what I look at in my degree when I say I look at the philosophy and politics behind economic relations as well. Like, there is that, I do look at it through that gendered analysis. And even when it just comes to the language of economics as well, it's quite masculine.
In what ways? Can you give some examples?
The only real example that pops into my head is like the notion of the bear and the bull, and those are very like aggressive, sort of like angry. I mean, the whole reason that it's called bear and bull like economy is because of that's their fighting style or whatever, like. And that's just, I think, that is often associated with like masculinity and being like very like, strong and attack on and head on, which is like sort of in society or historically what has been associated with masculinity, and those sort of languages behind the economy still persist today, even though we are seeing like less of a gendered gap. Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about both of your careers, and you're both obviously very, very young, you have long careers ahead of you, what are the types of careers that interest you both?
I think I'm mainly interested in foreign affairs and, foreign policy and how that relates to the greater international market. I'm really interested in like how certain politicians and political actors influence markets and, the international political economy. I think it is hard right now to sort of get into foreign affairs. I mean, there aren't many entry-level jobs in that.
Well, I was about to say that. Do you find, like, in Australia, do you see that as like a viable career pathway, or do you think it's hard to get into it?
I think that you definitely have to work hard for years to get into it. I don't think you can go into it straight away. Unless you do a sort of, I know that the Department of Foreign Affairs has grad programs that you can go into, but I'm not sure if I'm looking for a grad program. I sort of just need a job, you know what I mean? So I think if you just work, you have to work quite some time before you can sort of enter those sort of roles, which, is something that I'm interested in doing, so I'm going to do that.
That's great. Divita, what about you?
So I haven't really thought too much about like after uni yet.
Yeah.
I'm not set on anything. I'm definitely interested in economics and finance, but I also have, like, I'm interested in marketing and commerce and business. I was always set on like law and doing a lawyer thing, which I still find interesting, and you could become like a corporate lawyer, which is related to economics as well. But I don't know. I can't answer that question. I wouldn't know.
I guess the point of studying economics isn't necessarily to get a job in it. Not everyone who studies economics is going to become an economist, and nor should they. I think it's more just that it's a good grounding of so many other roles, and just gives you a great understanding of how the world works and how people think, and the behaviors that sort of drive a lot of the spending that occurs every single day in our economy, both from the government, consumers, and businesses.
I think, especially because I look at it like through a political view as well, like in my degree and in my own life, like financial literacy is like an important part of having a stable democracy and having like, voters who really are working in their best interest rather than being susceptible to what someone is telling them to do. And I think that the decline in economic literacy in like Western states, as we've seen in Australia and also the US, we're seeing like people becoming less and less inclined to really understand what's going on in their own accord, and just kind of, being told what to do when it comes to their political decisions. And I think that when we have like people in power who make economic decisions for our entire state, it's really important to understand what it actually is that they're doing, and like their policies, what the policies mean for the greater economy, rather than just what people are telling you they mean. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for both of your time today. It's been a really interesting discussion, and I hope you've both found it relevant and useful as well, and fun.
For more info on Shane and Diana's podcasts and reports, head to the Insights Hub at amp.com.au.